Today I have a very simple but cool project. We are currently in my office at work, and as you can see, I have some empty space on my desk that I could use for a tank. So today I brought in a tank from home. The scape that I have in mind for it is very simple, but I think it will be a very fun addition to my desk at work. Let's get started. So you can see the spot that I have here. I think this cube tank will fit perfectly right into this spot. And actually, this spot also has some natural lighting that will come in. So this tank will have some sunlight as well as a light installed on it. So I guess first of all, I should probably move my plants that I have here. And then give this area a nice little clean, make sure that it's all ready to go for the tank. And let's go ahead and fit it here. Here is the spot I've chosen for the tank. I think this will be perfect to see from my work area, and it's nicely out of the way. I don't think it takes up too much space on my desk. So before we get started, let me kind of talk through my thought process with this tank. So this is going to be a nano tank, of course. This is just a small cube. I think it's somewhere between 6 and 10 gallons. I honestly don't remember. My plan for it is to keep it heavily planted. I don't think I'm going to do any hardscape just because as a work tank, I want this to be low maintenance, and I think the plants will grow in really nicely. So I do plan to use a planted substrate. I honestly haven't decided if I'm going to add a filter yet. If I do, it's going to be an internal filter because I don't want something extra hanging off of it, just for practicality. If I do decide to get a filter, it's just not something I have yet, and it can be added later. But with the planted substrate, this could also be a wall-stab tank. I have all my supplies ready to go, so let's go ahead and get started on the build. I chose some thick lava rock to put on the bottom of this scape to provide some space and aeration, but also to provide some structure along the back because I do want a little bit of a slope. So I will go ahead and start adding these pieces to the back of the aquarium first. This will give something for the planted substrate to sit on top of and just provide a little bit of a slope to the aquarium without using too much of the substrate. So now that we have the back built up just a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and add the planted substrate. This is some strata and a mix of some sea chem fluorite, I believe. This is just a mix of old planted substrate as well as a little bit of new planted substrate. I want a little more in the back, but I do plan to have plants all around this tank. So I will try to add it to every spot in the aquarium. Something I've noticed with planted substrate is that it's best to wet it as you put it in the aquarium. This is because a lot of the dust and extra nutrients on the aqua soil can kind of leach into the water column as you add water. I find that wetting it before adding water actually mitigates some of this. So I always do this step. You don't want there to be enough water that you start to see a layer come up into the tank, but just enough so that all of it is nicely moist. I think that's perfect as is. So now I have my nice thick layer of planted substrate. This will give all my plants a really good chance to dig down into the substrate and grow really thick throughout this tank. The reason why I chose to do it this way is because, like I mentioned, I'm not adding any hardscape to this tank. So I think that it's going to be really important to get the plants to fill all the way through the entire tank. So the next thing I will add is the sand cap. This prevents the nutrients from the soil from getting up into the water column. And I've also noticed that with planted substrate, if you leave it exposed to the water column, the light will actually cause algae to form on the substrate. So a lot of times with planted substrate, if you don't cap it, you will see some algae forming on the bottom of your tank. This is some old sand that I took from other tanks in our building. This will help with getting some nitrifying bacteria into the tank as it begins. Now I did go ahead and wash this because it's been in older tanks. I just wanted to make sure that it still had some bacteria, but there wasn't a lot of waste built up in it, because I do want a fresh start in this tank. I don't think I'll use all of this sand. Let's go ahead and spread it around and see if that's enough. I prefer natural colored sand that's light because I think plants look really great on it. I think I will add a little bit more sand. When you're choosing how thick your sand layer is for planted aquariums, something that you want to consider is the size of the roots for your plant. So if you have some delicate plants that grow relatively short roots but spread out, you want a little bit of a thinner sand layer so that those roots can actually get down to the dirt. And if you have plants with really big, thick root systems, you want to make sure that you build out your dirt layer even more. Since I'm choosing some pretty delicate plants for this build, I think this is perfect. It's a little bit of a thin layer of sand. Before I add any plants to the aquarium, I'm gonna spray it down one more time. I want to make sure that the plants going into the aquarium have something wet to cling on to so that they don't dry out. Okay, now that I have my sand sprayed down, I'm ready to start planting the aquarium. I have my first few plants right here. I'm gonna start with the biggest plants. So this is a dwarf onion plant, or a zephyr rain lily. I really like these because they look like thick grass coming up in the back of your aquarium. And in my experience, they are very easy to care for. They feed from the roots, so they need some nutrients, but they are overall very easy. I also chose some creeping jenny. I really like this plant because of the round foliage. I think it's very cute. And I like how it vines out into the aquarium. So I'll go ahead and spread these into their individual pieces. I always find that plants do better if you split up the stems. If you try to plant a bunch all together in one, they'll get really crowded. The next plant that I chose for this build is dwarf hairgrass. This is one of my all-time favorite plants. It just looks really great. It's like a beautiful carpet of grass underwater. So these are all my bigger plants for the aquarium, and now I'm just gonna decide on their placement. I'm gonna choose to put these zephyr rain lilies in the back right corner. They will get taller, and I kind of want to see them cascade over the middle of the aquarium. Now the creeping jenny will get taller than this, so I definitely want to put it in the back. I think I will just kind of let it cover the back area here next to the zephyr rain lilies. Okay, I like this so far. I have a taller long plant that will come over the top a little bit, come out probably a little bit, and then I've got a small, cute, round plant that will look really nice growing in this corner. Will kind of bush out a little bit and get a little bit taller. So for the dwarf hairgrass, what I'm going to do is pull it apart and spread it around throughout the aquarium. I still want to keep this towards the back because I want the pearlweed to be the focus of this tank, which is coming next. Definitely let it grow along with the creeping jenny. So I'll kind of put them together. this a lot so far. I've got some mixed bigger plants throughout this area, and the next thing that I plan on doing is adding lots of pearlweed. I love pearlweed because it is a very delicate plant, and it will grow very thick and very pretty in aquariums. I've got some pieces with some nice roots here that I can put along the bottom for a really great start on this growth. Now I want this pearlweed to be the focus of the aquarium. This plant will get really nice and big and look really awesome growing up and out into this entire cube. And I think the sunlight in this room will also help a lot. So now it's almost all the way filled. What I'll do now is make sure that everything is positioned in the way that I want it to be. Just sort of place plants right where I want them to go. At this point, I'm ready to add the light. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on. Now this is a small light for this aquarium, but as I mentioned earlier, this room does have a lot of sunlight. So I think this will do just fine for this aquarium. I also decided when looking at the tank that I thought it could use a little bit more pearlweed. So I went and got some more pieces. Okay, great. And I'm actually really happy with how the planting has turned out in this tank. You can see that it will just kind of get wild as it grows in. I'm also going to add a floating plant. Since I think I'm gonna keep Scarlet Batis in here, I think it will be best to add a floating plant. I really like this one. I'm not 100% sure about what it is. I think it is a type of duckweed, but it has this really cute purple underneath, and it grows in clusters. So the last thing that I plan to do with this tank is go ahead and add some semi-terrestrial plants coming out of the top. I think the sunlight in this room will make these do really well, and I'm excited to see how they grow. I chose an asparagus fern. Very pretty, dainty plant that I think will match the pearlweed really nicely. And I also took a cutting of my ficus tree at home to put in this because I've noticed that these will grow a lot of roots and you'll have a tree growing in your aquarium. Until I have a better way to fix these to the side, I will just drape them like that in the back corner. The last plant that I plan to add to this tank is a very pretty arrowhead vine, Syngonium. This one has a little bit of white to it. I think this will look really nice with this tank. So here's the finished tank. It is really very simple. It's just a messy planted scape. And I think I will enjoy this a lot as the plants start to grow out some more and spread throughout the aquarium. You can see it's very messy now with the pearlweed pieces, but I plan to clean that up a little bit more. I need to find a better way to secure these plants to the back of the aquarium. I think I might try installing a cup with some holes in it so that there's still aeration and water flow moving on the roots. But for now I can leave them hanging here and I'll figure out something better. So here's the finished aquascape on my desk. I'm really happy with this. It's a very fun little tank. And I think it's very relaxing too. So here's a 1 week update on the tank. I added some tannins to the tank, as you can tell. It's a little bit darker. I'm not sure if I'll keep it this dark. I do plan on keeping Scarlet Batis, and I know they appreciate the tannins, so that's why I added those. You can also see I added some botanicals, just some leaves for the shrimp. Let's see if I can get some of the shrimp. I added some Calico Sunkissed Neocaridina. I think they will look really cool in this scape. I also added some nerites. You can sort of see them right there. These are Pink Lady nerites, one of my favorites. They have a nice bright pink color. I also added a filter. I used this Aquazen Nano Corner filter, and I really like this one because it has a couple of different cartridges that go in it, and also I like how customizable it is. It has this outlet, which you can see creates some nice flow, and it actually comes with some different pieces that you can put on it to position the filter in different ways, and it has moving pieces as well. I really like the amount of flow that this gives for the aquarium, and I'm excited to see how this filter does long term. I also wanted to show kind of what this tank looks like in the dark. I chose this edge-lit aquarium, and it has some LED strips that go across the bottom, and they light up the edges of the aquarium when the lights are off. This looks especially cool when I'm coming in early morning and it's dark outside. It's kind of just a blue glow. It looks really awesome.